I'd like to talk a little bit about the eras of drug development and how we've seen them. I've actually been involved in HIV drug development since really the 1980s when I was at NIH, and then with a Wellcome company in the 1990s, working with AZT. I was the global project leader there for several years before coming to Gilead about 17 years ago. So it's been a pleasure for me to have an opportunity to work in this field and to see from a very personal perspective the development of these treatments which have made such a great impact on this a very devastating disease. So really we can divide the eras of drug development sort of into three broad categories. The first era from 1985 maybe to the mid-1990s. This was the era that was associated with the development of single agents, including AZT, as we mentioned earlier, other agents, 3TC, DDI, D4T, and the initial experimentation with combination therapy. The initial treatments being AZT, DDI or DDC, then AZT, 3TC, and other combinations such as D4T and DDI. And these certainly did have an impact on morbidity and mortality, but were not durable. This was followed then from the mid-1990s to roughly 2000 with the development of highly active antiretroviral therapy. So this was the use of 3 or more agents combined to fully suppress virus replication. And it was generally 2 NRTIs plus either a protease inhibitor or an NNRTI. And this had a dramatic impact on morbidity and mortality. And this is the mortality curve from the US that shows beginning in that era of the mid-1990s to 1997 or 98, you can see a rapid drop in the mortality associated with HIV infection. And this was certainly a milestone achievement in the development of treatments for HIV and required cooperation from patients, from academicians, from doctors, from the federal governments, of various different countries, and from the pharmaceutical companies working together to come up with these effective strategies. However, there were limitations on this remarkable achievement, and that was that it oftentimes required many pills to be taken, and oftentimes different times of the day was not so convenient, some with food, some without, and oftentimes with unacceptable long-term toxicities. So this really ushered in the third era of drug development, which started in the early 2000s and continues to now, which really focuses on simplified and better tolerated regimens. And this includes once-a-day treatments. There's really been a switch in that direction, and also to single-tablet regimens, which we'll discuss in more detail, which has now become the dominant form of therapy in the US and in Europe, and even in the developing world. Certainly better regimens for treatment-experienced patients is something that we've been able to accomplish in this era as well. So there were a variety of medications developed during this period of time, and they include tenofovir, disocoxyl fumarate, the oral form of tenofovir, and Professor Balzerini, as mentioned earlier, along with Dr. de Klerk, was involved in the characterization of this molecule, which was actually synthesized by the Czech chemist, the late Czech chemist, Tony Holy, and licensed subsequently by Gilead Sciences for development. Also M-tricytidine and the combination of tenofovir and M-tricytidine called Truvada. Abacavir, which was combined with 3TC to form Kyvexa. Rilpivirine as a very well-tolerated once-a-day NNRTI. The protease inhibitors atazanavir and darunavir, and the integrase inhibitors valtegravir and elvitegravir. This is not a comprehensive list, but does list many of the medications that are now commonly used in the management of HIV infection. And I will note that almost all of these medications can be given once daily, with the exception of valtegravir. Also of note are the development of single-tablet regimens. Now, a single-tablet regimen is a complete treatment regimen of 3 or more drugs combined into 1 tablet. And STRs provide additional convenience of dosing intended to improve adherence. The first of these medications was Trizavir, developed around 2000, which was a combination of 3 nucleoside transcriptase inhibitors. And however, it was found in controlled trials that it was not nearly as potent as a standard of care zidovudine plus 3TC plus efavirenz. So that regimen has fallen out of favor. This was followed by the subsequent development of other single-tablet regimens. These were administered once daily, and they include Atripla, which is the combination of Truvada and efavirenz, first made available in 2006. Eviplera, or Complera as it's known in the US, which is Truvada plus rilpivirine in 2011. And Stribild, or formerly known as Quad, which is Truvada plus the booster cobicistat that Dr. Bartlett mentioned earlier, along with the integrase inhibitor elvitegravir, and that was made available last year in the US, and soon will be available in Europe, or is available now in Europe. This is a depiction of various single tablet regimens. A triplet is on the top, the efavirenz containing regimen. Eviplera containing rilpivirine is underneath that, and then Stribild or Quad containing elvitegravir is underneath that. So these are the single tablet regimens currently available. Underneath those are two new single tablet regimens. So these are ones that have been co-formulated and are currently in development, and we'll talk a little bit more about those as I go forward. So the guidelines for therapy for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services lists a variety of regimens for various categories of patients, including treatment-naive patients. And these are the preferred regimens for treatment-naive patients. In the NNRTI category, it's a triplet containing efavirenz. In the integrase category, it's valtegravir plus Truvada. And in the boosted PI category, it's either boosted atazanavir or darunavir along with Truvada. There's also an alternative category listed that contains both Stribild and also Eviplera, and contains many of the regimens included in preferred with Kyvexa in place of Truvada. And you'll notice that AZT or D4T are not included in these regimens, and that's because various studies have shown that they are either less efficacious or associated with more side effects than the use of either Truvada or Kyvexa. This depicts the proportion of patients that have been treated with single tablet regimens in 2006 when the first regimen became available in the US. This is US data looking at 15% of patients receiving a triplet in 2006. And since that time, since other regimens have become available, Complera, in 2012, over 60% of patients who initiated treatment initiated with a single tablet regimen. And now Stribild is available in the US as well, and the proportion is even higher. There are some data suggesting that over this period of time, that the treatments, including these simplified therapies and single tablet regimens, have been associated with important improvements in therapy, including reductions in the age-adjusted death rate due to HIV, reduced healthcare costs, and also reduced hospitalization. And part of this may be due to improvements in the management of patients, certainly the regimens that are available, and also the contribution of single tablet regimens. So clearly a clinical impact from this strategy, which is intended to make therapy easier for patients and physicians.